Stata is a quantitative data analysis tool, and it is very easy to use, but very powerful data analysis software package. It offers wide array of statistical tools that include both standard methods and newer advanced methods as new releases of Stata are distributed annually. So in every year, you see Stata releasing a new version of their statistical analysis package. And the current version is Stata 18. So what it means is that in every year, as they release new versions, they always try to advance upon the previous one. So they introduce new contents and new ways of analyzing things, or in just short, they always try to improve upon the previous one that they released. So the most recent version of Stata is Stata 18. So now let's look at the Stata interface. Although the most recent version is Stata 18, but what is very common is that the user interface remains the same. So there are some key items that I want to show you here. We have the history window. That is where all the commands that you type will always appear. And I must also make this point before I proceed that Stata is more of command-based. That notwithstanding, you can also use the drop-down menu when you want to analyze your data set, just like how SPSS is. But I prefer Stata because of its command-based nature. So the history window section of it shows how or all the commands that you've typed into your command window. And then the command window is where you type the specific command that you want to tell the program to use to analyze your data. And then the results window section displays the results that you've instructed the software to print out for you. So that's where the results of your commands appear. And then on the variable window section is where all the specific variables within your data set appears. Then at the properties window section, it also tells us the nature of the variables and then even the description of the variables. So if you look at this picture, the variables, we have about 12 variables and then 74 observations. So this part of it gives you an idea of the variables within your data set and then how many observations are even within the data set that you've uploaded. To look at them specifically, now let's take the command window. So the command window, like I said, is where you type your commands. And we'll make some of the resources available to you so that after this session, if you want to practice this, that is fine. So the command I typed here using the most recent version of the Demographic and Health Survey for Ghana was to tabulate variable V00, V013. And to do that, you just tabulate or you just type that in your command window. Then you press enter, which will beautifully show you your results. And then the next thing that I want to also talk about is the variables window. And the variables window appears on your right-hand side of the Stata user interface. So if you look at what I have here, which I use the most recent DHS dataset as an example, you see the variable name and then the label. So with the DHS, it starts with the case identification. So the variable name is the case ID, and then the label is the case identification. So they've arranged the variables in the order that they appeared in the original data set. So with this, it starts from the case ID through to the most or the last variable. And it gives you the labels or the description of the variable codes. And this is very important because it makes it easy for you to know which variable represents what in the data set. If you double click on the variable, the name will appear in the command window. So with this one, the V012, I double click that and the name appeared in the command window. So if you want to use this for your analysis or you want to tabulate it, I'll just proceed with the tabulate command, which will share some common commands with you after this session. The next thing is the properties window. So the properties windows, like I said, also gives us detailed explanation of the variables within our data set. So with the recent demographic and health survey data from Ghana using the individual record file, like we explained in our previous session. So this is the file for the females. It has about 5,581 variables. And then the observations are 15,000, which is the same as the sample size, 15,014. And the storage capacity is 89.53 megabytes. And it covers about 128 megabytes of my computer storage. So this is how the properties window looks like and its description. Now let's specifically also look at the review window. So the review window lists previously issued commands. And on this tab, the successful command will appear in black. So if you look at the commands that I typed here, I intentionally tabulated V025 and then V013 just to see how the distributions like and then whether they are statistically different or not. So that was type of place of residence against age in 5-year age groups. So the results appeared at this side. Because that command wasn't wrong, it was in black. But if you make a mistake, then it will appear as red. So if you look at the subsequent one that I typed, I omitted the O in my chi-square or in my command line. So the first one was tab V025, V013 row chi, which I just wanted to know the differences between these proportions. It's just for display sake. But in the second one, when I omitted the O, it was telling me that this option row is not allowed, meaning it was a wrong command that I typed. So it did not allow the system to run the command for me. The next one that we want to also talk to you about is the working directory. And the working directory might appear a bit different depending on the type of laptop you are using. So those who are Windows users, you always see it at the bottom or the left bottom of your system. So for instance, with this one, this tells me where my working directory is saved under users in all documents Stata file. But you can always change this working directory using the cd command, which the documents will share with you. You also see that, that command in there. However, if you are a Stata user, a Mac user, it will appear a bit different. So for instance, whilst in the Mac, it was CD in whilst on the Windows, it is CD. But with Mac users, you see use instead of the CD. So I am using Mac, and to trace the working directory of the data set that I use for display purposes, you can see that in my downloads with the data file name gh_2022_DHS with the whole path name. So if you want to trace where this data file is located, this is where you can find it. And all the analysis, and even I'll talk to you about log file very soon. all the analysis and others that I will do in my data set, I can find them under this folder. So that's what we mean by the working directory. Now let's look at the menus. So just like I spoke to you earlier, Stata is more command-based. That notwithstanding, you can still use the drop-down menus to analyze your data if you want. So with this, on Mac, if you click on graphics, so for instance, I can use the command to maybe graph, bar chart, or histogram, or box plot, or scatter plot. But I still have the option to use the command window to also type the same thing. So essentially, we want to tell you that if you are finding it difficult to use the commands, you still have the option to also use the drop-down menu, which you can equally use to achieve whatever analysis you want to achieve. But for me, I find it more easier to use the commands.